I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 7th meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners to order. We had a work session with the Airport Advisory Board at 6 p.m. At this time, I would like to call on Miss Kim Farabee from New Bethel Church of Christ to do our invocation, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us bow our heads. Oh, gracious Father, we thank you for once again for giving us this opportunity to come before you. God, we thank you for this first meeting of this year, and God, we ask that you will bless us. We thank you for the leaders that you have given us. We ask that you will guide our thoughts, that you'll be with us throughout this meeting, that we would do the things that you will have us to do. And God, we thank you and we bless your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Farabee.
Flag of North Carolina?
Huh?
You're not going to pledge to our wonderful state of North Carolina's flag?
That'll be next meeting.
All right.
That starts at 10 o'clock tonight. You be here.
I'll be there.
Oh, you do? Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask for the approval of the agenda. However, we do have one thing under old business that we need to delete due to a death in the family of the engineer. Consideration and action on PB 1220 Harbinger Land and Timber. I'd like to ask that be deleted from the meeting tonight and continued to our next meeting.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item D is public comments. We have two people signed up tonight. First one is Ron Melton. Please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Ron Melton. I live at 218 Moyock Landing Drive. Just want to let the commissioners know that we've gotten with Mr. McRae, and Wednesday night at 6 o'clock he's going to meet us at the Moyock Landing Library to come out and talk to the residents. There's been some questions submitted to him already, so he doesn't hopefully feel like he's been bushwhacked too much, and I kind of get him an idea of where some of our thoughts are. And Ms. Gilbert has also been invited as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Tommy Hardison. Please give your name and address as well, sir.
Tommy Hardison, 112 Applewood Drive. What I want to speak about tonight is that, Mr. Martin, we had a talk at the school about the railroad track and the what you were trying to do with the highway department. Did you find out anything from that time?
No, sir. This was the conversation that dealt with the shingle landing and the railroad crossing there because until it's taken over by the state, the people there are going to be responsible, the homeowners in some way or other, or the developer is going to be responsible for paying the insurance, the liability insurance, and the fee that I think it's $4,800 that the railroad charges. And I have not approached that because it is out of our hands until it's actually the homeowners association and the developer actually get together, and then we can go on and ask that that be put on the list and be approved for adoption by the state.
I believe since the nursing home up there on Moyock Landing, I guess that would be a business, right? And I believe the liability insurance was $2 million for the railroad. And I had an application from the railroad that I was looking at. and they had the information on there. And the liability insurance is for a business. It's for $2 million. So I understand that the Clariton is paying that right at this point, but it don't seem right to have a business there and for liability insurance of $2 million, and maybe at one time or another we might have to pay for it. That don't seem right to me.
I would suggest taking that up with the county attorney on Wednesday, and he's much more knowledgeable in that on that part of the issue and everything, and he could probably give you better advice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's the only two I had signed up for public comments. Was there anyone else?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to sign up.
Okay.
All relax, I'm not going to fuss at all.
Tell us who you are and where you live again, anyways.
It's John Snowden III, 180 Maple Road. I just wanted the citizens of Currituck to know that we all lost a good friend over the holidays. Alan Russell, who was up at the DOT yard at Maple, died on his way to work after the holidays. And anybody who had anything to get done in Currituck, Alan is probably the one you dealt with. Mm-hmm. So the service was right after New Year's, but I heard they had a lot of people out there. And Paul and I kind of take this hard because Alan was just a little bit ahead of us.
Yeah,
so.
But he used to come spend a lot of his youthful days in Currituck.
Oh, yeah.
I attended that funeral, and that was the largest funeral I'd ever attended at Twyford's. It was very well attended, and he was very well thought of. And if you had your roads or potholes or anything fixed in Currituck County, he probably had something to do with getting it done. So we certainly lost a good friend to Currituck.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ditto both of y'all's remarks. Alan was a wonderful person, wonderful individual, and he was caring. He always, nowadays it's kind of tough sometimes to get state agencies to go the extra mile to help you get things done. He was always willing to go that extra mile to get things accomplished for the citizens of Currituck, and the citizens in our county are going to miss him greatly, I can tell you that. Thank you.
Yep. All right, that's all I had signed up. I'm going to close the public comment and move to public hearings. The first one, item A, is public hearing on proposed tax schedules, standards, and rules for the 2013 reassessment. I believe we have Mr. Sample here, and maybe he could just briefly tell us what this is all about, because I know everybody is in anticipation, waiting to see what the new tax values and rates are going to be.
And if there's any rocks being thrown, make sure you throw them at him.
Good evening. At your last meeting, you were presented with a schedule of values and rules for the upcoming revaluation. And as required by law, we've advertised that this meeting will be a public hearing, which is tonight. And it was also advertised that these schedules were in my office for inspection if anybody wanted to see those. And they were also advertised, they're posted on our website. We have had some inquiries to those. People have called to find out where they could get a copy of them. I gave a gentleman a copy the other day. But as far as the revaluation, we're getting near the end of the revaluation for over about a year, looking to sales and visiting the properties and taking a look at them. We're looking at near the end of February, first part of March, to send revaluation notices to all the people. As we all know, the economy is down since the last revaluation, and I expect our total tax base to decrease. More than likely, the board will be faced with a tax increase. How much, I can't say at this point until we finish the revaluation, but hopefully by the first part of March, we'll have some numbers where we can take a look at and see what the tax rate may have to be.
To the tax rate to get a revenue neutral.
Exactly.
Well, you have to publish what the revenue neutral rate would be.
Right.
And that will probably be maybe the budget ordinance or budget statement. You're not bound by that. You can reduce the value. You can reduce the taxes. You can increase those. I believe at the last revaluation, the revenue neutral rate was 30 cents. the board chose a rate of 32 cents, with those 2 cents right at that point designated towards the schools, if my memory serves me correctly. I may be wrong, but that's what I seem to remember. You're not bound by the revenue neutral rate, but we will tell you what that rate would be to generate the same amount of taxes this year as last year, taking into consideration normal growth, which is at this point is very, very small. I can answer any questions or try to answer any questions you have. I don't know if we had anybody sign up for the public hearing.
I don't know. I guess the main question most people want to know is when will they know what their new value is?
That will be near the end of February, first part of March. We will be sending the normal tax listing forms out, hopefully within a week or so. They will not have the values on them. But we will send a separate notice, like we received last time. It's a notice that shows the property values, the description, and it's also an appeal form. If somebody feels their property is inflated or overassessed, they can tear it off, fill out the information, send it in to us as an appeal. We're not going to get everyone perfect, so if somebody feels like their assessment's too high or too low, they can certainly contact us. But we're looking at the first part of March.
And then the board would adopt the rate when, Mr. Scanlon?
The rate will be part of your budget deliberations, and you'll adopt it. Historically, we've always adopted a budget in the first or second meeting in June, so those rates become effective July 1st.
Okay. So there's a synopsis for the public. I guess we can... Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sample?
I have one, but it has nothing to do with this assessment. Can you explain, please, the change in the tax law on paying personal property taxes on your automobiles and vehicles? And
yes, I can.
This is a change, and you have to pay them when you buy a license.
Starting with people that renew their vehicles after July 1st, we'll get a registration or an invitation to renew their registration from the Department of Motor Vehicles. It'll have the $28 fee or how much your registration fee is. It could be higher, but a lot of vehicles are $28. It will also have your county taxes right on that on that invitation to renew your registration. You'll have to pay both to renew your vehicle. Those people that typically wait until it's time to renew their vehicles, to renew their tags, to pay their taxes, those people are going to have to pay their taxes for last year plus the next year. So they're going to end up paying, to get the car taxes, they're going to have to pay 2 years' taxes. But that's because they waited a year. Because they renewed the tag, we sent them a bill, they ignored it. We sent them a second notice, they ignored that. And now it's come time to renew their tags. Well, they're going to have to pay the old bill plus the new bill and the registration to get their license. So I would advise anyone out there that gets their tax bill, go ahead and pay it, or you're going to have a big sum to pay when it's time to renew those taxes.
You need to put your phone number on the website.
It's on. I'm pretty sure it'll be right on the notice from DMV to give us a call. And you also have to get your car inspected. There's 3 things you have to do: pay your taxes, get your car inspected, and pay your registration fee. We are sending out notices.
Thanks, sir.
We are sending out notices in the motor vehicle tax bills that we send out now, explaining the new regulation that's coming up.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing. We had no one signed up. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this issue during the public hearing that did not sign up? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And I don't believe it requires any action on our part tonight other than to hold the public hearing. So, Mr. Sample, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
You got out of here unscathed.
Well, since there's no questions or concerns at this point, I'll probably ask Gwen to put the approval of the schedules on next meeting's consent agenda.
Okay. That'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is public hearing and action, PB 05-38, Bonnie Bright Mine, request for a special use permit modification to expand an existing sand mining operation from 29.2 acres to 49 acres. The property is located at 101 Marsh Causeway on Knott's Island, tax map 55, parcels 1, 2, and 3, Fruitville Township. Anyone that wishes to speak, we're doing one swearing in. If you wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this item, you need to come forward now. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
do.
Thank you. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a modified special use permit for the Bonnie Bright mining operation, which is in Knott's Island. You can see an aerial photograph of the existing operation off Marsh Causeway Road. Property is limited service in our land use plan, the Knott's Island sub area, and it's zoned agricultural. The county does allow mines in the agricultural zoning district, so it is an allowed use. This particular site actually extends over into Virginia as well, but the North Carolina portion of the mine is 101.8 acres, consists of 3 parcels. The existing mine is 29.2 acres, and under our old ordinance, the 30% of a site area was the maximum excavation area for a mine. As this board probably remembers, we did an amendment to the new UDO to allow mining operations to excavate up to 50% of the total lot area. That is the request that is before you tonight, is to increase the mining area from approximately 30 acres to 49 acres, so basically adding almost 20 acres of mining area. When that text amendment was approved to allow mines to increase their excavation area, there were a couple of parameters that went along with that. Probably the most important was that to be eligible for this increase in area, you had to have a period of 5 years with no violations of your state or county permits. This particular mine has had no violations in that 5-year period, so they're here tonight to ask you for a increase in the excavation area. This is a special use permit. In your packets, there are the findings you have to make as a board, or the criteria that have to be met for this permit to be issued. Staff has provided suggested findings for those criteria. I'm not going to read those individually, but I'll note that staff does see that the proposal does meet the criteria you're supposed to make tonight. The TRC, or the Technical Review Committee, which is the staff group, has also reviewed this application for expansion. The TRC does recommend approval subject to the existing conditions as modified of the special use permit. So again, I'll note, this isn't a new special use permit. This is an existing use permit that's being modified to allow for increased excavation area. So we are carrying forward the majority of those use permit conditions with this approval. One thing I want to note additionally is the planning board heard this request at their December meeting. And one discussion point that came up I want to cover is conditions 31, 32, and 33 of the use permit relate to a bonding requirement the county had. In the use permit, the county required that the applicant or the developer of the mine post a bond above and beyond what's already required by the state. The developer or applicant requested that the county bonding conditions be moved or stricken from the permit. Planning board heard this request, and they did recommend approval of having those conditions removed from the permit. Now, I'll note that, and I've done some due diligence as staff, and we've contacted the state, and the state does require a bond to be in place for reclamation of the mines. What that means, when the mining operation is done, if the landowner is not willing or is not able to reclaim the mine, which is stabilizing the slopes, putting seed or grass on those, making the slope right, then the bond is called and that work can be done. I'm not sure why the county had a bond above and beyond that state-required bond, but I just want to note that staff has called the state, and we do think the bond that's posted or required by the state is sufficient for reclamation, and that planning board did recommend the county bonding requirements be removed from the use permit. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Mr. Woody?
Yeah, I have one. So, Mr. Woody, what you're saying is the county requirement from the conversations you had with the state, they feel that the amount of money that's in the bonding situation will fully meet and take care of any reclamation issues that may come about, correct?
They do, and I'll note that the bond amount for this bond that's posted with the state is $69,000.
Thank you.
That would be money available for reclamation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if anyone for the applicant has anything to add.
Good evening. Dave Klebitz with Bissell Professional Group, and I really don't have much more to add. I think Ben's done a good job explaining the proposed expansion and also going over our request to remove the reserve account requirement. The only thing I would like to add in addition to what he has to say in regards to that is that the new UDO also does not require a new mine to have this reserve account. It's been removed from the requirements. So that's all we're doing is just asking that it be removed as well. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have for us on a technical level.
So is there anyone going to speak to the engineering portions of water and that type of stuff?
If you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to answer any of that.
Well, just for the record, I would just like for someone to explain the drainage system, the weir systems and stuff that are being installed or has been installed and that type of stuff. There were some concerns, I understand, at the planning board about some, the runoff and that type of thing. I just want this board to hear.
Sure, and just to recap the planning board conversation, there's one of the items, special use permit condition number 10, I believe, is being stricken at this time, and staff is actually removing that because it's not a requirement anymore either. That condition was that no runoff discharge from the site, and actually Mr. Bright has always been permitted to allow runoff from the site or discharge from the site. So that's what that conversation stemmed from. But Mr. Harold Jones is here tonight. He's a consultant for Mr. Bright that's been handling all the monitoring, discharging, and all that. So I'll let him discuss further details on that. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Harold Jones. I'm with Sigma Environmental out of Virginia Beach. Concerning your question regarding drainage, the mine is permitted under the NPDES permit as a commingled discharge, which means that mine pump water that does come to the surface after it's gone through a recharge system and a conveyance system that is quite frankly in excess of, well, in this particular case, almost a mile's worth of lineage, is allowed to discharge to a drainage ditch that ultimately goes to Back Bay. And that commingling is also with runoff that comes from the adjacent farm fields that completely surround this mine on three sides. So it's a combination of both types of waters, both groundwater that's being pumped and runoff, which is generated from basically precipitation. We also have developed a recharge system. There's a series of 5 or 6 different weirs that are placed within the surface recharge system that allows the water to achieve a reduction in velocity as it moves down through the system. It helps to then settle out solids and settable solids. It helps to help the chemistry within this water before it's discharged out to this other ditch that runs to Back Bay. In the 5 years that I've been working on this site and monitoring the NPDES outfalls and the ground pump discharge, along with the readings that come from the adjacent monitoring wells, we have not had one exceedance of any of the water quality standards on this site. So, in addition, the recharge system, I calculated it on the Virginia side of the mine. I have not done that on the North Carolina mine, but over the course of a year's worth of data collection, we achieved about an 85% recharge rate of the volume of water that's being extracted from the mine as it goes through the discharge or the recharge system. It's either recharged back into the groundwater. Some of it's lost through evapotranspiration, and a minor amount, about 15% of the total volume on a per annum basis, is discharged to surface waters. So it showed good performance, and I anticipate with the expansion and the new water control structures and the new ditch lineage in there, it will have the same performance rate as what we're experiencing now.
Yeah, I just know I've been on the site before in the past, and he has a pretty extensive system in there for his drainage, being very careful to not do any pollution or to catch the sediment and that type of stuff. And I just wanted this board to hear the measures that he's already put in place and taken.
There's been a great effort to maintain water quality. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I just have one more. I don't know if you'd be the proper one to answer this. Traffic impacts. Okay, I wonder, okay, what type of, are we anticipating any increase in traffic from this particular thing? I think the young man behind you is going to speak to that.
I'll be happy to answer that. Through my discussions with Mr. Bright, this mine, even though it's an expansion in the area in which he wants to mine. He's not planning to really change his mining operation. So over how it's been conducted over the last 5 or 6 years. So with that, it's reasonable to conclude that there's not going to be any more traffic out there than what you've experienced over the last 5 or 6 years. He's not planning to double, the actual operation itself, just expand into a new area.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my questions.
All right. Anyone else? Hearing nothing else, I'll close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move to approve PB 05-38 with the finding of facts, staff, and planning board recommendations included in the case analysis.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, public hearing and action on PB 1219, Barry Nelms' request to amend the new Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 5, Development Standards to allow off-premise directional signs. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a text amendment request. In July 2012, the UDO was amended to allow off-premise directional signage for businesses located adjacent to the Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway. That amendment was approved. Following the approval of that amendment, Mr. Nelms, a business owner in Currituck County who owns a restaurant, hotel on the Currituck Sound, submitted the text amendment to expand that previous approval to include off-premise directional signage for businesses located along the Intercoastal Waterway and the Currituck Sound, so expanded the scope of that. This board did hold a public hearing in December to discuss this matter, in November to discuss this matter. At that time, it was remanded back to the planning board for reconsideration, and the staff was directed to review the sign ordinance and provide a recommendation to allow off-premise directional signage. So we're here back before you tonight with some planning board motion for this amendment and also some options to be presented by staff. So before I do that, real quickly, just a little background, because some of the new commissioners weren't here for the original public hearing. In 1992, the UDO was amended to allow off-premise directional signs. And what that means is a sign that is located at a property other than where the business is, the intention of which is to direct traffic to that business. A good example is when this original amendment was done in 92, it was directed towards businesses in Crawley Village, in the Intercoastal Waterway, or located more than a quarter mile off the highway. At that time, the directional signage that was allowed by the county was to be authorized specifically by the Board of Commissioners, and was only to display the name of the business and the direction in which it was located, and the sign itself was supposed to be similar in size and style to a street name size. So the original off-premise directional sign really was just an arrow sign or like a street name sign. Over time, many years later, when a sign committee was put together, that provision or that allowance was struck. It was removed from the ordinance. And, of course, we're here again because in 2012, we received an amendment request to add that off-premise directional signage allowance back into the ordinance, and that request allowed the signage to be up to 100 square feet in size. So that's kind of where we're at and where what predicated Mr. Nelms' amendment request you have before you tonight. Real quickly, what I wanted to note as we go through this, a couple of things that staff is proposing if we're going to allow off-premise directional signage in the county. Staff would note that one thing that's important is that the business be located in a commercial zoning district adjoining the Currituck Sound or Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway. The waterways it adjoins can be flexible. It could be both those. It could be one of those. Signs, off-premise signs, should be located in a commercial zoning district on a major arterial street. So, for example, if you had a business located on the Currituck Sound, your directional sign would be located on a commercially zoned piece of property on US 158 or NC 168. And finally, we suggest that the off-premise directional signs be prohibited in and for businesses in the Outer Banks. Some considerations you have as a board when you go through this is what bodies of water should have the ability to have off-premise directional signs. Are there any particular streets on which the signs can be located? We suggested major arterials, which you can see there. And, of course, the size and the height of the signs, if they are to be allowed, need to be considered. What staff has done is we've put together two options for you to consider as you requested. And, of course, Mr. Nelms has an option that he'll discuss tonight. The first option for an off-premise directional sign would be one sign that's 32 square feet in size, 10 feet in height. You see some examples there in the photographs. And, of course, as we mentioned, one key to this is that you own the business property, but you also own the property on which the sign is located. So there's a dual ownership requirement with this. And as I mentioned, both properties would be zoned commercial. And again, staff, what was approved in July was 100 square feet sign, but the reason staff is recommending a smaller sign is this is, if it's directional sign, it really should be less like a billboard and more like a directional sign. That's the reasoning for our recommendation of a smaller sign size. And even smaller than this might be more appropriate for it because it is a directional sign. Option 2, which is probably more of a true directional sign you could consider, is having a 4 square foot sign and locate that sign at the intersection of a major arterial and Collector Street. So, for example, it would be on the intersection of where the two streets intersect. Now, the one probably disadvantage to that in Currituck County is those signs are pretty small, so they're probably difficult to see when you're traveling in an automobile or a motor vehicle unless you're stopped at a stoplight or something. But that is probably a true directional sign as far as you know, what a directional sign is versus a billboard or outdoor advertising sign. So those are two options that staff is putting before you for consideration. Mr. Nelms, his original request, which is obviously an option for consideration, is to maintain the 100 square foot sign size that was approved in July, maintain the requirement that the property is owned under the same ownership as the business and the sign location. The only thing that Mr. Nelms has proposed to change is that the signage the provision be given to not just businesses on the Intercoastal Waterway, but also businesses on the Currituck Sound. The planning board heard this request at their meeting, and of course in their September meeting, the planning board recommended denial of Mr. Nelms' request. However, after being remanded back to the planning board at their December meeting, they recommended approval of Mr. Nelms' option. And one thing now that's the three options, and I want to note a couple of things before we get to the conclusion of this. First of all, is if the sign, we can call it a directional sign, but if the NC DOT feels like the sign is attracting the attention of motor vehicle drivers, and it's located off-site or off-premise, then DOT considers that to be a billboard, and it will need a permit from the NC DOT. We asked DOT for a specific square footage, but they wouldn't give that to us. They just said if it's off-premise and it attracts attention of a motor vehicle driver, it is a billboard and subject to our requirements. That's one thing to keep in mind. And generally, DOT requirements are typically related to spacing of signs, outdoor billboards. The other thing I'll note is, and we're missing, I had done a map that showed some sign locations, but I don't see that in the slideshow, but I'll describe that real quickly. So one question that came up was how many properties, if we allowed a commercially zoned property adjoining water to have a off-premise directional sign. Well, how many properties are we talking about? I was really surprised about this, but in Currituck County, there are currently 75 parcels that are commercially zoned and have frontage on a waterway. Now, of those 75 parcels, I'll say, some of those are really small, some of those have houses on them, so probably wouldn't be candidates for the off-premise directional signage. But, of course, some of those are larger and can potentially be subdivided. So there are a number of parcels that are actually zoned commercial that do have frontage on a waterway, Currituck Sound Intercoastal Waterway, et cetera. So that's something to consider as you deliberate on this. And the last thing I'll note is staff. Our 2006 land use plan, we have a number of policies, in particular a few that state that or do not support increasing the frequency or number of off-premise advertising signs. From a policy perspective, there is some language that disincentivizes or discourages adding more off-premise advertising to our corridors in Currituck County. And, of course, that was the reason why staff recommended against the original approval in July and did recommend against Mr. Nelm's request as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Woody?
Mr. Woody, do you have an example of a 100 square foot signage comparable to like the other examples that you have? Just to kind of give a visual of what the 100 square foot would be.
I do not, but I can say that if you know where the Krabby's sign is at the corner of Worthgard Road and the highway, that's a 50 square foot sign. And so in the original request, it was to double the size of that sign. So if you think about that sign, twice the size of that would be 100 square feet.
Okay, so that one is a 50 square foot.
That's a 50 square foot,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
His plan was to double the size of that.
Anyone else?
Mr. Woody, one other question. Where's the property exactly again that Mr. Nelms is proposing to put this directional signage?
I don't know the answer to that. The way that when we amend the UDO, this becomes an option that's available to anybody in Currituck County. So I don't know what property Mr. Nelms plans to put the directional sign on, but he would have to demonstrate he meets these ordinance requirements in order to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing, and I guess Mr. Nelms he's here.
Sworn in? Or?
No, you don't have to be sworn.
Yeah, I'm just here to answer any questions you have. To you, Ms. Gilbert, the 72-foot, I think, is the square footage of the sign the county has at the Welcome Center. It's approximately the size of 3 sheets of plywood, 8 by 32 square foot each. I'm here to request, as I had before, the same request that the board granted Krabby's Restaurant. I do so because I have an identical situation that he has. I've had Walnut Island Restaurant since 1985. I had an off-premise sign when I bought the restaurant at that time, and that sign was in the middle of the median of Walnut Island Boulevard and the intersection of US 158. At that time, the roads in Walnut Island were controlled by the developer, Mr. Larry Woodhouse. And when the state took it over after I purchased it, they advised me that I had to move the sign, which I did. I took the sign out of the median and I moved it over to the corner of the property that Miss Alethea Baum owned, those of you that knew her when she was alive, and kept the sign there for approximately 3 to 5 years, I'm guessing. Ms. Baum offered the property to me. I couldn't afford to purchase it. We tried to subdivide it. I couldn't buy a part of it, and she sold it to Bodie Noel, who put the scat through there. And I had to take the sign down from there, moved it across the street to Dr. Sarah Forbes' property, which is where the Handy Hugo's service station is. Same sign I had in 3 different locations at the intersection. Because the sign is critical to me. I'll give you an example right now, and I really never thought about it until I got ready to come here today. In the Grandy area, approximately 1 mile either side of my intersection, there are 11 restaurants that I compete with. 10 of them are on the highway, and I am off the highway. So I am at an extreme disadvantage, and that goes from the Sonic all the way down to BJ's Restaurant. There are 10 restaurants in Grandy. We got the highest concentration of restaurants anywhere else. And I love the competition. And I compete with Hardee's and McDonald's. My burgers are killer. And I have people that drove here. We had 8 bikers yesterday, all with their wives, that drove all the way from Norfolk in the rain to get a berry burger. And so I'm doing some things right, but if they don't know about it, then they don't know to turn, those people that are traveling through here, particularly the first time. When Dr. Forbes sold the property, I had to move the sign and take it down, and I got the DOT to let me put it back in the median. And if those of you that remember the sign back then, I could not put the name restaurant or lodge on it because that would have made it a truly commercial sign, which is not allowable in the state right-of-way. So I had that sign for 14 years. And the sign worked because I was allowed to put my logo, which is 3 flying canvasback ducks. And everything went fine until approximately 8 years ago when the Property Owners Association decided they wanted to command the sign, and they physically removed it. They tore my sign down on a Saturday afternoon, and the sign has not been up since then. So since then, I've been law-abiding, trying to compete with everybody else. And when the board granted Mr. Miles, which I'm glad it did, the opportunity to continue his business because his business is suffering from the same economic demise that mine is, it gave me the opportunity to come before you and ask that I be given the same consideration. And that's what I did. I went back to the planning board. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have that came up from them. I disagreed with their options 1 and 2 because, and you can see the other dilemma that Mr. Woody brought out is, what are we going to call the sign? Well, it is a directional sign, and it is a sign, whether it's a street sign or it's a big billboard sign. The idea is to capture people on the highway and tell them where to turn to go eat. You know, our travel and tourism, the first thing you see when you go into Currituck County is stop and eat now. The kids are screaming in the car, and travel and tourism is doing a great job here. But they've got to know where to stop and eat from places other than those that are on 168 and 158. And I'm one of those businesses. Mr. Woody brought out the fact to you about the businesses on Currituck Sound, and I'm sorry, I thought he had, because I gave him my map, but I didn't bring my map. But there were only 6 businesses on Currituck Sound that are active businesses that could use a sign. And most of those already have one. Currituck Marina has one. Krabby's has one. There were only 3 that were left that didn't, and that would be Pearls at Knott's Island, a restaurant in Corolla, and my restaurant. The rest of those properties that he's talking about, I'm not familiar with 50 or 70 some pieces of residential property. Gosh knows where they're at. Somebody brought up one, Tulse Bay. But Tulse Bay, the old Tulse, Stan Tulse place, is right on the highway, so he wouldn't qualify. I'm off the highway. I'm 1/2 a mile going through the Walnut Island subdivision before you get to my place. And I spent an extreme amount of money. I just paid my taxes. And I paid it on time every time ever since I've been in this county. And I'm glad to do that. But I need some relief and I need some help. And I need a nice directional sign. It's not going to do me any good to put up a street sign out there because the traffic is at 65 to 70 miles an hour coming into Grandy, as all of you know. And nobody's going to see that. I want to put up a nice lighted sign that you can see at night to draw people to it, not to distract or to confuse people, just like we have at the Welcome Center. Miss Marion, a sign of that, my thinking is a sign of that magnitude. Since 1983, I've been paying on the commercial piece of property that I have inside Grandy $667 every year. It has nothing but pine trees on it. It's under my ownership, as is my restaurant, and so I qualify. And I qualify under every condition that you've asked anybody else to qualify under. And I simply would request that you approve option 3, my option for a 100-square-foot sign on property that I have to bring people to my restaurant. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Nellis, what's the size of the Welcome Center sign?
I think it's 72 square foot or smaller. We purchased that, Dan, in 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But it's not big. It's less than 100 square foot, I'm sure.
About the digital sign?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's what I would like to do. I don't want to put up. I'm not asking for a billboard sign. I've got 4 billboard signs right now. I pay $2,000 a month. And I didn't make $2,000 last month, I'll tell you that. And with the good weather coming up, the duck hunters aren't going to be here this week. Are not going to make it this month either. But I pay $2,000 a month. Two of those people, $1,000 of that money goes right back into people in this county that own those billboard signs. And I'm glad to do that. I believe in North Carolina. I believe in buying local. And I'm just trying to survive like everybody else. I don't have the advantage of being out on the highway, but I do have the advantage of having the greatest view, I think, in North Carolina of any restaurant. And I just need to get people down there. My wife and I looked at all of our figures over all of last year, and 70% of the people that are coming to our place are coming new into Currituck County. And I talked this over with Travel and Tourism, and they said, yeah, but the problem is not having the bridge. They're saying that people are not coming back from last year. People are coming here, and they're getting stuck in traffic, and Donna and I both hear this every single day. We came down here in the summer, but the good thing is we're starting to rent some of our motel rooms because they want to come down here on Friday night, spend the night, and then get up early in the morning. They can get to their cottages. But Travel and Tourism tells me that you're exactly right, Barry. They're not coming back because of that bridge. They're standing in 3 or 4 hours of traffic, and then they're having to stand in traffic to get back home. And so that's another problem. I'm just trying to get them down that half-a-mile stretch down Walnut Island Boulevard. We've completely redone all of our rooms except for 2. We got hit, as most of you know, terribly by Hurricane Irene. Had to shut half the place down, and we've now got everything back up and running just about except for 2 rooms, and we just need to let people know where we're at.
Mr. Nelms, I just want to ask you again, give me a landmark exactly where your property is that you want to put the sign up.
Right after you come into Grandy, if you're familiar with the turf farm, there's the Welcome to Grandy sign. You know where Mr. Larry Woodhouse's horse is? Mm-hmm. It's the next piece of property. I own 27 acres of land. Part of it is Neals Creek Park Apartments, the first apartments that I built in the county. And that piece of tract of land goes all the way from Poplar Branch Road to US 158. The piece of property is designated as Lot 10 Neals Creek Park, and I'm the sole owner of that. It's been commercial since back in the 80s. I had it rezoned commercial back then. There's nothing on it, Marion, except for some pine trees. Mr. Woodhouse cleared the lot next to it, and then he's got his horse stable, and then his house next to that.
How far is that from actually where you turn into Walnut Island, Mr. Nell?
Less than a mile, I'd say.
Okay.
You go past the rescue squad, and then you got the 2 stoplights. And the problem, Mr. Martin, is that once you get there, if I can't get somebody a message, I've got one here at Murdered Quidley's, the sign just here at Coin Jock, and then you've got all the confusion and all the excitement of seeing Dennis Anderson stuff, and then you get into Grandy. And Lord and behold, you got the stoplight, you've got Sonic, you got another stoplight, you got McDonald's and Hardee's, and then you got everything else that's there at that intersection. And nobody has that memory of where to turn to get to Barry's. The sign at Mildred's does say turn at the 3rd light, and we just had to change that because we had the 2nd light on the sign erroneously was wrong. But I feel if I could have just a nice directional lighted sign on my property that I pay taxes and pay commercial taxes on, that would be an extreme benefit to me and to the tax base of the county, would help my business and would help the county out. We pay a lot of taxes in personal property, pay a lot of taxes in sales tax, we pay a lot of taxes in occupancy tax every month.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. Mr. Nelms, your food is excellent. I've been to your restaurant, and sheet crab soup is out of this world. But as someone who doesn't frequent the Grandy area, that's why I was asking, because it is. Once you come into Grandy, when you're looking for something, even some of your signs coming into right at Cotton Gin that says that, Barry's restaurant is at Walnut Island. The Walnut Island signs aren't as visible either. So I understand your issues with trying to get some directional. So I do appreciate that and let you know that, it is needed.
Well, thank you for this. The thing, at one time I actually had the billboard sign right behind 7-Eleven. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's kind of back off, but it's 2/3 hidden. And I had that sign for more than 10 years, but it didn't do any good. Nobody saw it. And then I got the opportunity, and the sign that's there across the street from the cotton gin is actually owned by, it's a North Carolina corporation, but they're not local. And so I took that because I'm just trying to catch those people that are leaving and they want to stop. If they come, we get a lot of people that stay at Hatteras, Buxton, Avon down there. And if they want to stop by to eat before they get onto the interstates, then that sign is working. I've got one up here at Ms. Odom's, and then I've got one more on the shortcut on Mrs. Roberts' property.
All right. Any other questions from the board? If we don't have any here.
I do have, Mr. Chairman, I do have electricity. I've had electricity. There's an electrical pole right there. All I've got to do is clear out 50 foot of junk trees. There's an old building that's been dilapidated there forever that needs to be taken care of anyway, because I think kids play in it at the wrong time. But I mean, I've got everything there except the permit to do it, and I appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the board.
Mr. Chairman. For Mr. Woody.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, Krabby's original sign as it sits right now is how big?
It's just under 50 square feet. I think it's 48 square feet.
Okay.
What did
Has
DOT...
Krabby's put... Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Has Krabby's put their new sign up? Is that...
DOT
They have not. They ran into an issue with DOT.
Okay.
And appear to not have the ability to replace that sign or make it larger.
What was that issue?
I think when DOT sold a piece of the right-of-way to Terry Miles, so he does own the land where the sign sits. But in doing that, DOT designated that sign as a non-conforming off-premise sign. And in their permit, they said it couldn't be expanded.
Change it. Yes, sir, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, when we looked at this sign issue back in the summer, we figured it'd be a one-time thing. And Commissioner Idlet said we're opening up Pandora's box. And now we're seeing, what has happened. The issue over the signage for the Midway restaurant is no longer an issue. DOT has denied the need for a sign. I'm looking at this map, and it shows, I think, Mr. Woody, the green circles on the map show over 25 different properties that could have signs put up and down 168. And we don't need any more signage. The people, when we were up at the Moyock Small area meetings, have complained about cleaning up the corridor. We have tried to clean this corridor up, and we have been stymied so many times. We've tried to get rid of the billboards, and we've been stopped there. And I just, I know Mr. Nelms and other businesses would like to be there, but I just don't think that this is something that we need to go ahead and do. I think we would be paying for it again and again in the future. And I would actually like to make a motion to deny PB 12-05 due to its inconsistency with the land use plan, and it's not reasonable and not the public interest, and does not promote orderly growth and development.
Okay, we have a motion for denial.
Second. Do we have it?
Now,
discussion?
Yes.
Okay. From my perspective, as Mr. Martin alluded to, I said then we opened up Pandora's box. We did open up Pandora's box. We given approval for a sign in Coinjock. Now, Mr. Nelms is coming asking for the same consideration as what this board has already approved. And I just, from the sense of fairness, I personally cannot turn him down. So that's my comments. Motions will go where they go.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I believe you went to move to close the public hearing, but you
Yes.
didn't complete that process. You were interrupted.
We-
It was never actually closed.
We did close the public hearing.
It is closed.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I mean, I like to comment, like Mr. Nelm said. I know, we recently purchased myself with another group of business of the county. I know we paid the county, I think, $32,000 in back taxes from that business. I know he spends a lot of tax money with his businesses and so forth to the county. I mean, I could understand his. I don't know about a lighted sign, but something what Mr. Miles has. I mean, as a business owner, kind of relate. But as far as a lighted sign, I don't know to that standard, but maybe to something like what Mr. Miles has. I can see his point.
I can see where the comments are going, and if the board denies it, it's denied. If the board does not deny it, there'll be a substitute motion. If in fact there was a substitute motion, I think the board should make it apply to existing businesses, because Mr. Woody said there's 75 parcels that would qualify under what's being proposed, and that includes, I believe, on the Outer Banks as well. Is that not correct, Mr. Woody?
That does not include the Outer Banks. And I do want to clarify, there's 75 parcels that are Zone GB that are on waterways. But as 25 of those parcels actually also have frontage on the highway. So unless they did some sort of subdivision, they wouldn't apply. And of course, keep in mind that some of those parcels, in fairness, do have houses and they're really small. There's a lot of parcels that are on. There's more than you would think that are on the waterway that are zone commercial.
Okay, you take 25, you're looking at 50
yeah.
100-foot signs potential. So I think if the board were to not pass the denial and it were to go the other way, you better give some consideration to, are you actually intending, when Mr. Nelms made his presentation, he showed 5 or 6 possible existing businesses, I believe, and only 2 of them didn't currently have a sign beside himself. I believe one was Pearls and one was somewhere else and himself. So we've gone from 3 to a potential 50 to 75. So if the motion does not pass, you make a substitute motion. You need to think about what kind of numbers you're going to put on it.
Mr. Chairman, are we still having discussion?
Yes, sir. And we're getting ready to vote.
All right. I think the key for me is directional. I can't imagine a 100-square-foot sign to give directions. You could put a map on it. Believe it or not, I understand what he's saying, but 100 square feet to me is big for directions. And that's the key word for me is directions. So that's the only thing I have.
Any other discussion?
Are we voting to deny?
There was a motion to deny the request.
The request for his option 3.
That's correct.
Option.
Any option.
Any option.
Any option. That's correct. That's what the motion is, and duly seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay. The motion does not carry. Mr. McCree, is a substitute motion in order? And if it is, since this is a amendment to the Unified Development, doesn't require unanimous?
First of all, unanimous vote is not required because in this instance, this is a type of ordinance that requires a public hearing.
Okay.
Secondly, you have defeated a main motion, so another motion may be entertained by the chair.
Okay. At this time, the chair will entertain a substitute motion if there is one.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, do we know how many businesses actually would be affected existing today? How many signs it would, what it would entail with existing businesses today? I heard Mr. Downs say there were like 4.
Mr. Downs bought a map that showed 6 existing businesses.
There was there are only a total of 6. And we're talking about businesses, active businesses.
Existing,
not parcels of land. There were 6. And that included Krabby's and Coin Jock Marina. And included Tulls Bay, which are out of the equation. The only 3 that were left are Diana and Mike's at Corral, which is back in the subdivisions, Timbuktu, off of the highway. So he technically would would qualify, although he's not on Currituck Sound. He's on the marsh.
Right.
And the only two that are left are Pearls at Knott's Island and Berries on Walnut Island. And if I could say one other thing, I understand this argument, and I got into this with the planning board.
Mr. Nelms, could you come up to the microphone?
Microphone, please, and try to be as brief as possible.
I will. I'm not going to get excited, Mr. Chairman. You know, in politics, we continually use the phrase that Mr. Martin used, in the public's best interest. Well, who is the public and what is their best interest? The best interest of the public in this county is for us to capture every tourist that comes through Currituck County and not let them get to Dare County. And the second part of your motion, Mr. Martin, was about what? You remember?
You're talking.
Yes, sir. Well, the growth and development of the county, how is a sign going to inhibit growth and orderly development? It does just the opposite, sir. It does just the opposite. A sign is going to promote orderly growth and development.
Get back to, we were talking about the number of parcels.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
But
my facts were obtained from the tax map from Currituck County.
And that was the existing businesses is what he presented.
And that was part of the information that I gave the planning board. Yes, sir. Those were the only three that are current businesses on Currituck Sound.
Okay.
Those are the only ones.
And the reason I brought that up is I know in the past we've had parcels come forward where a gentleman said he wanted to rezone the business so that he could build a business, and he put billboards up because he knew he wasn't going to get approval. And what I'm saying is, if there's 50, we'll say 50 parcels, and you approve all of them for this, there's going to be signs start going up, and your phone is going to start ringing. That's the only point I'm making to you, aside from what he's requesting. So I think the scope needs to be spot on, whatever the board does, is my only comment.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Having been, commissioner before and sitting here, I've listened to more discussion about signage. And it's always an issue with everybody in this county. And the reason I made the motion to deny was in the best interest of the people here, because they have over and over and said we need to clean it up. We need to get rid of all this signage. And that is the reason I made it. I'm sorry Mr. Nelms took it personal, but I was reading from the motion that I was given by the county attorney. But I would respectfully ask that you all remember that.
All right, we need a substitute motion so that we can finish up with this item.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, again, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I respectfully request that when the hearing was open, you did not give an opportunity for anybody other than Mr. Nelms to come forward and talk.
Did I not ask anybody else?
That's correct. You did not. That's correct.
Does anybody sign
Okay.
up?
Well, I had no one signed up. I have no one signed up. Did you sign up on the form?
No, sir. I would like to speak, though.
Well, the board would, I've closed the public hearing, so the board someone would have to make a motion to reopen the public hearing, and it'd have to be.
Do that?
I make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Please give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Teresa McPherson. I'm at 117 Evans Drive in Grandy in Walnut Island. I appreciate you reopening the hearing. What I want to say is that I was not even a resident here at the time the sign was taken down, but I am current president with the Walnut Island Property Owners Association. And on behalf of the association, I would like to apologize to Mr. Nelms for the manner in which that sign was taken down at that time. As I understand it, it was not done properly. and it should not have happened. But beyond that, I would like to say that Mr. Nelms has supported Walnut Island Property Owners Association's efforts in its cleanup, as well as the county commissioners. And I am very grateful to that extent, and I believe that Mr. Nelms has a wonderful business. His food is wonderful. My husband and I enjoy it very much. And so I believe that it is important to support our local economy and support our businesses. And the manner in which to do that is by advertising that business. Now, I mean, if you want to talk about cleaning up signage, respectfully, I say to you, then go to the Food Lion across the highway and tell them to clean up their signs. They look awful. It looks like a slum when you drive through there. So I would respectfully request that you consider carefully allowing signs to promote our local economy and our businesses. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McPherson. We have someone else. Please give your name and address for the record as well.
Janet Rose, 212 Pointers Road, Moyock. I support Mr. Nelms' request as well. I've lived in Currituck my whole life. And it appears over the last few years, we are saying buy local, buy local. But I'm seeing something different up here. The last few meetings I've been to, it seems like we're bending over backwards for developers to come in and develop property. When we develop property and we put up houses, I'm not sure that's not costing the county in the long run in many instances. When we allow, and I don't want signs every which way either. I don't want to look like south of the border. But we do have to help our local businesses. Mr. Nelms is supporting our county with tax revenue. I hope that you'll try to help him and other businesses as well with signs. I'm very good friends with another business owner who's also a restaurant in Grandy, and she's struggling. She needs advertisement. So I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing again and ask.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
sir. At some point in time? Mr. Nelms, help me work through the difference between a 100-square-foot sign and something that can get people in your door with directions. To me, a 100-square-foot sign is a billboard. That's my personal opinion. We can agree to disagree. But I think I know I'm looking for a compromise that can help you and kind of help us that we're not opening up Pandora's box for billboards. And Mr. Odlett said it, and I said the next day, and I'm on record, I should have never approved Krabby's. I should have never done it. It was a mistake. And you were a commissioner, and I'm sure at some point in time you made decisions that you say, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So I'm asking you to help this board as a past commissioner. Is there a compromise that we can work on here that's not a 100-square-foot sign? Because I don't think you need 100 square foot to give directions. And the key word is this whole thing right here is directional signs. So I'm asking you, put yourself in our shoes, and we're trying to put our, in your shoes.
And unless.
Well, I know this that this, and I keep going back to the sign that I can't remember the size of it, but the one that's at the Welcome Center, it's about 72 square foot. Dan, you remember something similar to that? It was about 72 square foot, and I mean I picked 100 foot because that's what was allowed by Krabby's. I simply wanted the same, and y'all had already set the precedence that he's not. I don't have a sign bought. I don't have anything like that, but I mean I need something that can be seen. A street sign is not going to work. I mean, I think we all know that. It's simply not going to work. And my vision after going through the planning board, because I got unanimous approval from them, was to make something that's really night, not something that's illuminated hard, something that's soft lit, but shows up at night. The other thing that some of you may not be familiar with, 98% of my business is nighttime business. I'm not open for breakfast and lunch, except for lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. So if I don't have an illuminated sign, which I don't have at Ms. Odom's, I lose all the business. That sign does me no good after 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. because it's not illuminated. But I mean, you can get now on the market a nice repossessed sign that would be affordable to me to put up. That's a lighted, sign similar to the one that's digital that's at the Welcome Center.
Mr. Woody, is Mr. Nelms going to have to get DOT approval for anything he puts up?
Not for directional.
Not for directional, but if DOT considers it visible to passing motor vehicles, they'll permit it as a billboard.
I had a permit before, Mr. Petrie, when I had the one in Walden Island Boulevard, and I moved it all the time.
Can you
paid for that
Can you
permit
live
for
with
20
50 square feet the way Krabby's sign is right now?
That's too small. I can live with 76 feet. I mean, if you want to, I mean that's small, and I'm going by increments that the sign company.
I'm going to interject again. The size of the sign is not my concern. It's the number proliferation of these signs that people are saying there's enough signs. 1 or 2 signs is one thing, but if there's 50 potential or 75 potential tracts of land that can put up 100-foot signs, then you're going to be back in here.
Mr. Chairman, you forgot the parameter that they have to own a commercial piece of property out on the highway. That's not going to happen.
Well, they could buy a piece. I'm just saying if the board's going to do something, it needs to be tightened up. That, from my perspective, and that's the last time I'm going to say that. I'm going to ask the board for a motion.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that I hate to do this, I normally don't, but I'm going to make a motion, we table this, give us the opportunity to work with staff and to come up with something that's reasonable that will fit Mr. Nelms's objectives that he's trying to do, and also discuss how we can do something either with the existing businesses that are here or some type of way to do exactly as you're suggesting. And that's my motion.
All right,
I'll second that motion.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Administrative reports. Moyock Women's Club presentation and donation to Backpack for Kids. I believe we have someone here. Miss Tyler.
Yes, Miss Gilbert, Miss Hall. Good evening and thank you. On behalf of the Mayotte Women's Club, I'm president of the Mayotte Women's Club, and every year the president chooses a project. Mr. Nims, you may not want to leave right yet, because I'm going to talk about you. It's going to be good. We choose a project for our annual fundraiser, and we target children in Currituck County. Last year, we targeted Admiral Hope Line. This year, we targeted for all of our funds to go to our annual Christmas fundraiser, which is held the first Thursday in December, to go to the Backpack for Children's program through the 4-H Foundation. Mr. Petrie came and spoke to our Women's Club, and also Ellen Owens has spoken to our Women's Club with the 4-H Foundation about the need for the Backpack for Children's programs in Currituck County. I just want to add, Mr. Nelms has always supported us in our fundraising efforts and supported this fundraiser, and we were able to, this year, I will give Mr. Petrie, on behalf of the Mayotte Women's Club, I've got goosebumps. Because it's just so fascinating what we were able to do for the children. And I know Mr. Petrie's going to get emotional. I'll try not to. A check in the amount of $2,600 to supply. For those of you that are not familiar with the Backpack for Children's program, I'm going to try. On weekends, the teachers have certain students that would not eat during the weekend if it was not for the Backpack for Children's programs. There are snacks that they can prepare, healthy snacks, by the way, that they can prepare during the weekend so that they will be able to eat during the weekend. There are approximately
114.
114 children in just the elementary schools in Currituck County that are being provided with this service. There are many more that we would love to target, but we need more donations. So on behalf of the Mayotte Women's Club, I would like to donate this, and this will supply food for the weekends for
114.
I mean, for how long? A month?
A month.
A month.
It's about $2,200 a month.
So,
And,
thank you.
And for those of you that would like to get involved, you can call Ellen Owens at the Extension Center at 232-2262. And I will say this, and this is where Sheila and I share a common bond. If I talk about this very long, I'm going to lose it. But I had a counselor at Moyock Elementary tell me, if you could see the look on these kids' faces when they get these little packs of food when I deliver it. And I deliver it every Wednesday and Thursday, along with Sheriff Johnson. We kind of trade around. But just she said, if you could see the look on these kids' faces. And so this money is going to help a lot. And if you'd like to get involved, call Ellen Owens at the Extension Center at 232-2262. And God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Come play bunker.
Yes. As I said, every year we have a fundraiser at Christmas. It is the first Thursday in December. Please support our fundraiser so that we can support our children in Currituck County. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Yes, sir.
First, I'd like to thank the Moyock Women's Club. Excuse me. That's wonderful. That amount of money is wonderful. You ought to be commended. And also, I want to speak about Mr. Petrie. Mr. Petrie is his heart is into helping people that are in need. Not only does he run around here, there, and everywhere is doing this kind of stuff, he is very active in the food bank throughout this county. I know he has even took his time and come as far as Knights Island and to the ferry and delivered food so people at Knights Island could participate. And I just want to personally thank him for his involvement and the things that he is doing to help our seniors, our citizens, and our children in Currituck. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Here, here.
God's got a plan, puts us here for a reason.
That's right. Thank you very much. Item B is update on the Moyock small area plan. What, Holly, Miss Holly White, please tell everybody who you are.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to give you guys an update. I'm Holly, the senior planner. I left some paperwork on your desk. Tonight I hope to accomplish two things, and that's to update you on the status of the Moyock Small Area Plan in our last meeting in December, and also to talk a little bit about stakeholder committee appointment for this planning process, and hopefully receive your endorsement tonight to move forward with the planning process and with the formation of a stakeholder committee. The Moyock Small Area Plan is a long-range plan, and this is a 10-year window that we're looking at. It will look at local conditions and issues that are specific to Moyock, and hopefully in the end we'll have some detailed recommendations and tailored solutions that are specific to Moyock. And the plan would create policy and actions, not regulation, and it will be community-driven, meaning that there will be many opportunities for public input beyond just the stakeholder committee that we're going to form tonight. We're looking at doing this in Moyock right now because Moyock is the fastest growing township in the county with 122% growth since 1990. And with that growth comes other issues like stormwater, traffic, and provision of services at a county level. So far, what's happened, we're very early in the process. We kicked off this planning process in September. We held a second meeting, a community input meeting in December. In the meantime, staff has been collecting data. They've been mapping. We've been analyzing that data. We've been doing some interviews with our department heads to find out what issues and plans that each department has in the Moyock area. Just to give you a little glimpse at the December public meeting, and all this information will be available on our website. We had a public meeting December the 13th. We had approximately 50 people attend. It was held at Moyock Middle School. Once everyone arrived, staff did a presentation. We randomly broke people up into 7 different groups and had a staff person facilitate each group, and we asked people why Moyock mattered to them and what was important to them in Moyock. And everybody was given the chance to respond and write down an answer on a piece of white paper. We placed that on the gym walls. Everybody was given 4 dots and the opportunity to vote on which of those statements was most important to them. The individual voting, I tallied those results up, and the things that stood out as being most important to the individual voting that night was number 1, internet sweepstakes, and that residents are concerned about the presence of internet sweepstakes, and with Moyock being the gateway to North Carolina, to Currituck County, and to the Outer Banks, that this was the image that was being projected. And I'll add here that there was Supreme Court upheld the laws to make internet sweepstakes illegal, so this has been resolved and already taken care of in and of itself. We won't have to deal with this through the small area planning process.
Holly, and to add to that, the next day is when that happened after the Moyock Small Area
Correct.
Plan, and I got phone calls that our planning staff worked miracles overnight.
We can't take credit for that, but the second thing that evening that was very important to people was keeping taxes low and having small government intact. The third thing was a wider variety of businesses and being more pro-business, just availability of more services and industry in the area for convenience. Fourth thing was increased opportunities for recreation, and that would be for children and school-age kids or use of existing county facilities that are already there. The last thing that was most important in the individual voting was maintaining a rural atmosphere. We also tracked, we broke down the groups into colors, and so we kept up with what was important to the individual groups. And this actually differed, which is kind of interesting. So if we looked at each individual group and we looked at things that were common threads or common themes among each group, rural atmosphere and internet sweepstakes and the need for additional recreation were mentioned by people in 6 out of the 7 groups. Improved stormwater management and drainage, along with proactive planning that balances growth and development, was mentioned in 5 of the 7 groups, and diversity in housing types and low taxes was mentioned in 4 of the 7 groups. So if you take out the internet sweepstakes as being the top individual vote getter, the keeping the low taxes would be second. However, when you look at the groups as a whole, that was only mentioned in 4 of the 7 groups. So just wanted to point out some of the things that we're seeing, the trends and the feedback we're getting. Moving on to the stakeholder committee, we did keep open the stakeholder committee application process during this meeting, and we received 9 more applications. Potential applicants, that means 38 total applicants applied for this. We see the stakeholder committee as being a sounding board for staff, and the same information that's given to the stakeholder committee would be given, presented in public meeting, and the public would have a chance to comment on that. In addition, of course, it would be brought forward to you as a board. Ideally, our stakeholder committee would be between 12 and 15 members. And hopefully, by the end of this month, we would like to hold a kickoff meeting with that committee and start our additional public input opportunities in the month of February. We're going to have numerous other opportunities for the public to engage in the process through whole-scale community meetings and specific individual interest meetings like the Moyock Women's Club or any type of church group. We'd be happy to come and attend any meeting that we're invited to. So tonight, I'm asking for your endorsement of the 12 members that we've recommended in the spreadsheet that I provided to you ahead of the meeting. There's also a map attached to that. In selecting that steering committee, we looked at the responses that people provided. We also took a look at what they represented, whether they were a resident, whether they were a property owner, a business owner, and then geographically where they were located. We wanted to make sure that the whole study area was equally represented through selection of the stakeholder committees. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Anyone have any questions of Ms. White?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one recommendation. We received the stakeholder committee applicants and a recommended list from the planning board of 12 members. I would like to add one more to that group and make it 13 members. And I don't know if I need to put the name in there now or if that's...
You need to make that and make it the form of a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
Wait a second. Do you have a question for Ms. White? Mr.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the recommended list that was given to us from the staff, with adding Michael Hall to the bottom of, or to that list to make it an even 13, that we accept that recommendation of those members.
An even 13?
Even 13.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. Yes, sir.
Tell me why Mike Hall would jump over Darlene Weiss, Susan Evans, and Valerie Williams.
As the commissioner on this board, I think that Mike Hall would add a lot to that. This wasn't up for discussion prior to, like I said, we received this list today. I spoke with Holly this afternoon, and I would like to add him to that list of names. He's got law enforcement.
But my question is, how do we explain to Valerie, Susan, and Darlene that they were passed over?
This is a recommended list. I mean, we can choose and pick the stakeholder committee, but with the information that the planning board, or not planning, excuse me, the stakeholders committee recommendations from the staff. But I would like to add him to that list. I think he would add an asset to that, and he's here tonight. And if you'd like to hear from him on his reasoning, he has been, on board with this from the beginning. I have no objections of any of the other recommendations that have been put on this board, but I would like it to make it 13 and add him to that list of recommended persons.
Anyone else?
I made that motion, and I think Mr. Eidlich has seconded that.
Yes, sir.
I know that, I guess that they said earlier, the staff recommended 12. It was 12 to 15 people. Do we have to have 3 alternates?
The alternates, we haven't contacted, since we had everybody fill out an application to show interest, and we haven't contacted any of the recommended 12 yet to determine whether they're able to commit. And we developed the alternatives as a fallback list in case someone was not able to commit to the planning process.
How many total applicants?
38 total.
38 wish to be on it?
38 did apply for this opportunity.
And there were some criteria for that stakeholders committee, and there were some persons that applied that did not live in the Moyock district,
like
which
the township
wouldn't be considered.
I think there were 4 of those that were automatically excluded because of that reason. They're on page 2 and the red at the bottom.
I was going to say there's one on there. I know that doesn't really matter, but there's multiple different.
All right. Any further questions? We have a motion and a second. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion carries. Ms. White, I assume that you will contact the ones
Yes.
who were not chosen?
Yes, we will contact everybody within the next week to let them know the status of their application. I look
All right.
forward to coming back to you next month with other updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item is consideration and action on an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances to regulate outdoor tour operations. I know this one is going to be Mr. Woody.
I'm going to take that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McCree.
Yes.
Switching up on us.
This month marks 4 years since this matter was first brought to the Board of Commissioners' attention, in particular by people who reside on the North Beach and their concerns with regard to the impact of certain tour operations that were taking place on the northern Currituck Outer Banks. Since that time, there has been a working committee that came together to look at this issue and to provide some recommendations. There have been numerous work sessions by this Board of Commissioners discussing a potential ordinance, resulting in a first draft of this ordinance that came about in April of 2011. There have been further drafts of this ordinance to get us to where we are tonight with an ordinance presented to you for your consideration and recommendation from staff for its adoption. I won't get into much more detail with regard to what is contained in the ordinance because it's been repeatedly gone over by staff with you, and I'm sure that you're very familiar with it, and except to the extent that any new member might have some questions about it. The only difference between this draft and the one that was before you a couple of months ago for consideration, as well as the one that was in your agenda package, and I place a new draft on your desk before you tonight, is the definition of bus. There was some concern expressed that we wanted to prohibit buses as allowable outdoor tour vehicles because of the potential negative impact a vehicle of that size might have on the road system within the northern beach communities. So we've attempted to define bus, taking into account some communication from at least one of the tour operators about his concerns with an earlier definition of bus. Again, trying to craft a definition that would not prohibit or impact the ability of tour operators to use what we refer to or commonly know as these cattle cars, because of belief that the intent, or one of the intent of this ordinance is to try to encourage a larger number of people traveling in one vehicle as opposed to numerous Jeeps that have been the practice in the past, and the belief that that has a negative impact on the road system, and as well as the potential to the horses, which is an important resource on the northern beach. The other differences that I would highlight is in Section 8-88 on page 2, beginning in line 15, the license shall be effective for a term of 2 years. Going below that on line 18, no more than 10 licenses to engage in outdoor tour operations will be issued in any one time. Going on down to line 21 on that same page, there will be a limitation of only a maximum of 5 outdoor tour vehicles to be operated by a license holder. We then added, since you last saw this draft a couple of months ago, an amortization provision on page 2 beginning at line 23, which makes any operator that has more than 5 outdoor tour vehicles on the date that this ordinance is adopted will be deemed a non-conforming use, and they will have a 1-year period of time to shed any vehicles exceeding 5 in order to come into compliance with this ordinance and their licensure. Another item that I will point out to you, and there was some confusion, you may have seen some email traffic over the weekend, on page 5, line 13, regarding the authority of the Board of Commissioners to adopt routes or approve certain routes to be utilized by outdoor tour operators. There is no requirement in the ordinance as adopted that you adopt routes or that tour operators will be confined to certain routes at this point in time. But the Board of Commissioners is given the authority by this ordinance to sometime in the future, if deemed necessary, establish a routing system for tour operators to utilize and not go anywhere else within the northern beach than the route that may be designated. And then lastly, on page 6, beginning at line 4, after some discussion with regard to potential penalties for violations, we did do some tweaking and modification of the days of suspension for various levels of violations of the ordinance, so that 2 or more violations in a 30-day period would mean a 3-day suspension of their license and ability to operate. 5 or more would result in 10-day suspension, and 10 or more violations or citations in a 30-day period would result in a revocation of the license. I think there's another piece to this, Mr. Chairman, that there is provided for in the ordinance that a license will be issued upon the payment of an annual fee that might be paid by the licensee from time to time to the county. You have seen some spreadsheets that have been presented to you in prior work sessions, and I think may have been included in your agenda package or a recent email to at least 2 commissioners. It would be staff's recommendation that you consider the adoption and amendment of the county's fee schedule to provide that a fee would be $950 per vehicle for each licensee. With that, that's staff's recommendation to you, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. McCree?
Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Yes, sir.
We had talked about the series, like F350, 3500 series.
Yes.
Is that anywhere I can't see?
No. After we talked and I continued to learn more about specifications of Ford and GM vehicles than I really ever wanted to know, as well as the different types of buses that are in existence in this world, I decided that maybe the best route to take, at least at this juncture, would be to define bus as it is defined here. A vehicle larger than a private passenger vehicle, but with a wheelbase greater than 19 feet in length. That seemed to address concern from at least one of the tour operators that we heard from. Seats typically accessed by side or center aisle, intended to carry more than 15 passengers and used for the purpose of touring for hire. And I believe that will, I think, address the concern that we have that we think we know what a bus is when we see one. I think this definition will get us there. If it doesn't, it's something that can be brought back and tweaked at a future date if necessary.
The only thing I want to say is there's a bus halfway built that is within the guidelines of the length, the passengers, the whole thing. And the tires are this wide and this wide, this high and this wide.
But the wheelbase.
Well, that's
it's right in there, but it's an F450 Ford.
That's the other concern in looking at. I mean, we don't just have potentially Fords or General Motor vehicle chassis, but also we know that there are persons who are actually creating motor vehicles and designing them in such a way that might be able to avoid this particular ordinance requirement. It's noteworthy, though, that staff will be evaluating and reviewing each of the vehicles that will be issued a number from the county at the time that a license is issued. So I think the point is, if someone is attempting to evade or get around this particular ordinance, they may well be either denied a license or this will be brought back to you with a recommendation from staff of language needed to make sure that buses are not utilized on a northern beach as an outdoor tour vehicle.
As long as we have that latitude to control it.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple comments.
Yes, sir.
As Mr. McCree stated, this has been going on since 2009. We have worked on this thing. We have discussed it. We've argued about it. We've done everything within the realm. We've listened to people. We've listened to operators. We've had public hearings. We've had work sessions. There's been just any number of different tools that we've used to try to get to the point where we're at today. I want to commend the board. I think that what we have today, all the time and effort we've spent on it, is much better than what we had in the beginning. I think that the concerns that we have heard from people, as well as the operators themselves, we have done our due diligence to try to address, to make this thing as fair to everyone. So I just want to thank the board for their time, their input, and efforts to getting this thing done. And I'm sure staff is glad of it as well. So, with that being said, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion.
Have a motion for approval?
I make a motion for approval and also include the fee schedule that's attached.
And I'd like to second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 years later. New business, item A, consideration of construction funding agreement with Crawford Volunteer Fire Department for expansion of Sligo Station. That's also Mr. McCree.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a construction funding agreement that was a request brought to you by the Crawford Township VFD Incorporated for the county's funding of an expansion to their Sligo Station. It is a similar type of funding agreement that the county entered into several years ago with Lower Currituck Volunteer Fire Department for their facility by Kilmarlock subdivision. I just go over a couple of highlights to this particular agreement. It provides that the county will fund an amount of money to Crawford in the amount of $120,000 or a sum equivalent to the actual cost to expand the structure. Whichever is less, and most importantly also is that beginning with the 2013-14 fiscal year and every year thereafter, $8,000 will be deducted from the county's allocation to Crawford for its services until such time as the amount of money that's expended by this agreement is returned back to the county. Other than that, I think it's basically boilerplate language, although with the requirement and understanding that the work will be completed no later than December 31, 2013, the end of this year. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Board. Well, one other point I'd like to also make, I think it's important for you to consider. The board, at the time that this was brought to your attention in the spring, was concerned and interested in agreeing to this type of funding agreement that Crawford actually own the property on which its fire station is located. It is my understanding that as of today, a deed has not been conveyed to Crawford or in any event recorded with the Register of Deeds office. So it would be staff's recommendation, consistent with the board's expressed desire from back in the spring, that you approve this agreement contingent upon a deed conveying the property to Crawford be recorded.
And just as an update, I was told earlier that the signatures have been done. It will be recorded tomorrow morning with our Register of Deeds. So we still make it contingent, and then it'll be done tomorrow morning. All right. Any questions to Mr. McCree?
I have one for Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Scanlon, this is this is in line with things that we have done in the past, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
For the publics.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Hearing none, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve in accordance to what Mr. McCree just said.
That'll work. We have a motion for approval. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B is board appointments. What I would like to do is the first 6 are all commissioners going to regional boards, and everybody has said which board they would like to go to, so I'd like to do all those at once.
Mr. Chairman, we just need a name associated with number 2, which would be for the Albemarle Commission.
I've got that for you.
Okay.
Number 1 is appointment of Commissioner Griggs to the Whalehead Board of Trustees. Number 2 is appointment at Albemarle Commissioner of Commissioner Gilbert. Number 3 is appointment of Commissioner Petrie to Economic Development Board. Number 4 is appointment of Commissioner Martin to the Rural Planning Organization and County Manager to the TCC.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And appointment of Commissioner McCord to the Albemarle Mental Health Board, and appointment of myself to the Regional Health Department Board. I'd like to do all those in one failed swoop.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 7 is appointment to Planning Board. I believe that's Commissioner Gilbert.
Yes, and I'd like to appoint Carol Bell to that seat, replacing Joe Kovacs.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Appointment to Board of Adjustments. Mr. Griggs, I know. Defer. Okay. Appointment to ABC Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to table that as well until a further meeting to give Mr. McCree the opportunity to work on some language that we have discussed.
Okay. All in favor of continuing that?
Aye.
And appointment of voting delegate to Legislative Goals Conference.
A lot of trips to Raleigh.
Yeah, when does that when do you have to know?
That's Raleigh
yesterday.
When does that have to go in? By the 11th?
If
Is that a 3-day meeting?
Huh?
let me think.
It is a 2-day meeting.
2-day meeting?
Yeah. Okay. What did you say, Mr. Idle?
I was going to say, if you want to table it, I will think about it a little bit.
Well, it's got to go in by Friday.
Oh, excuse me.
Isn't that the 11th?
Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that you as the attendee and Vance as the alternate. Can we do that?
Yes.
Can you put an alternate on it? I didn't know that.
We just did.
Okay, well.
So one of the two of them will be attending.
All in favor, aye?
Or second.
Aye.
Opposed?
One of us will make sure we're there.
Yeah. Consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioners report. We'll start with Mr. Idlet tonight.
Let's see. The only thing that I have is I attended the last fire board meeting. One of the things that we discussed a little bit, and I think has come forward to us, is I think they would like to have a discussion with the full board, kind of similar to what we talked about this evening, to get some direction. I would appreciate that as well. Instead of me giving direction, we give direction. I certainly will give direction if y'all give me the authority to give direction, but to sit down and kind of talk about some goals, I think there's some ideas that I would like to discuss on how we maybe can make things a little better.
Well, how about we get you and Mr. Scanlon send us out a couple of dates to do a work session?
That's fine. I'll get with Mr. Griggs and get something.
Okay. Mr. Petrie?
Backpack for Kids, 232-2262. Keep it in the county. Thank you.
Ms. Gilbert?
I first of all want to just thank everybody for the holiday wishes, the cards, the phone calls, the text. It was very much appreciated to be thought of during the holiday season. Second, just a reminder that on Wednesday night, 6 p.m., the county attorney and I will be meeting with the Shingle Landing development stakeholders, homeowners. I'm not sure how this group is going to be labeled, but that's at 6 o'clock at the Moyock Library. Also, in addition to Mr. Petrie, the 4-H Achievement Night is this Saturday night. So if you have not signed up, please contact Ellen Owens, 232-2262. It's a great organization, and they should be applauded. And if you can attend that achievement night, it would be very much appreciated. Lastly, the Moyock Women's Club. Even though it says Moyock Women's, anybody in Currituck County can join the Women's Club, and I encourage you, if you're interested in working more in the community, to consider the Moyock Women's Group. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. McCord? Mr. Griggs? Mr. Martin?
Happy New Year to everybody, and I'd like to speak to the seniors. Seniors, if you're not taking advantage of our senior centers in Powell's Point, Knott's Island, and over at the senior center adjacent to the Y, you're really missing the boat. We're planning our summer tours and trips and everything, and we're talking about going to Nashville, New Orleans, and other places of real interest. And it's a lot of fun, and it gets you out and enjoying. There's all kinds of different activities going on every day. So please, take advantage of it this year.
Mr. Martin, a quick question. How old do you have to be a senior? Because I have senior moments. Does that count? Can I be involved?
I think we go by age. And if
there are some days that I feel pretty old.
Yeah, if you're over 60, you can get a free meal, and normally our seniors, show up, and a lot of them are real frisky.
Is it 60? Is it 60 or 55?
I thought it was 55, but
55, I think.
60. 55? 60 for the free lunch, yeah.
okay. Well, I'll just come when I'm having senior moments.
Yeah.
All us youngsters hope you seniors on the board have a good time.
Yeah.
From a 50-year-old.
Do you have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say I'd also like to thank everybody for all the Christmas cards that the McCord household got this year. I got more than usual, so hopefully we keep getting over the next 4
Beware. Beware.
Yeah, but Mr. McCord, you have to respond back to him.
All I can tell you, Mr. McCord, is you haven't had your first good cussing yet, but it's coming. Anything else, Mr. Martin?
No, sir.
I would like to report that I was at a breakfast first of the week with Representative Steinberg and Senator Cook and Representative Tyne that represents Dare County South. And we talked about we talked about COA and we talked about the aviation piece and the airport, and they got a really good understanding, but also talked about scheduling a time to go to Raleigh. We need to make it productive. We need to have the goals and priorities of Currituck County, and we need for the staff to go ahead and start. I think they got sworn in the first of the week, and so they're having the opening day of the legislature, I think, on Wednesday, I believe. And we need to go ahead and start scheduling some time to go up there and discuss Currituck County's issues. And also, they did form what they called a coastal caucus. We got a thing where they realized that now 85% of all the elected officials live in 10 counties. And guess what? Currituck isn't one of them, nor is Camden, Chowan, and the list goes on. So they formed a group of elected officials, senators, and representatives representing the coastal communities, coastal counties, and they're going to try to form to where they speak with one voice. So hopefully we have some voice up there. And then last thing, we also have not heard anything about a scheduled date with Senator Hagan to help us with our core issues. She couldn't believe we weren't asking her for money. All we were asking for was permission, and she kept saying, well, we don't have money. And we kept saying, we don't want your money. We just want permission to work on some issues. And it's my understanding that they were receptive to us having some time, and we probably need to start scheduling something with that as well. Of course, they've got to keep these crises going so that they can keep spending money, but we need to find some time when there isn't a crisis or a cliff so we can go and talk with Senator Hagan. And that's all I have. County Manager.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. We need a motion to
Adjourn.
And reconvene as the Tourism Development Authority.
So moved,
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now convened as the Tourism Development Authority. Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, you have two budget amendments in your agenda package that we're asking for your consideration tonight for dealing with occupancy tax.
All right. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Scanlon?
Mr. Scanlon, I couldn't get in my computer. Can you go over those two?
Okay. The first one is coming from the Tourism Department. They're requesting a $26,000 adjustment to their budget so that they can update their website, and they want to develop a mobile app that can support our local businesses when folks come into our community. And the second one is a request of assistance from the Wellhead Preservation Trust, $5,000 request to help them purchase a trailer for the boats that they're storing.
The first request is just moving money. That's not new money, correct?
That is moving money around within their budget.
Right.
The second request is actually new money.
Okay. So anyone have any questions? If not, we need a motion.
Motion for approval.
Have a motion to approve. A second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You can stay.